I've worked with several senators here who've been very concerned about issues related to civil rights, particularly with respect to one issue that's within my wheelhouse as a labor attorney, and that is the interests of Black and other workers and their employment prospects. We had hearings at the Civil Rights Commission, several hearings at the Civil Rights Commission about a lot of deleterious policies to the prospects of Black employment. And these were rectifiable policies, but they had pronounced effects, negative effects on Black employment. We even had a hearing where every single witness that spanned the ideological spectrum from left to right agreed, for example, that massive illegal immigration has a decidedly negative impact on wage and employment levels. I provided these reports to a number of senators and other congressmen. Many of the senators here were alarmed by it and questioned me about it, and we had interactions and other members of the Civil Rights Commission. I also provided it to members of Congress, including members of the Congressional Black Caucus. The one senator who reached out, being very alarmed and pursuing this case with ultimate vigor, was Senator Sessions. He was very concerned about this in a number of private conversations. We talked about a number of the steps that could be taken aside from reforming immigration law, which we all know here is something that's a significant challenge. But what could we do to improve employment prospects of Black Americans? He was the only senator to act in that fashion. I heard nothing whatsoever from the Congressional Black Caucus, despite copious detail about the negative impact of this. I'm ultimately convinced that Senator Sessions would take the appropriate actions to enforce the law as written, because that's what we were talking about, existing immigration law, and he was adamant in doing that without fear or favor and without bias.
Knowing him as well as I do, I agree with you. Mr. Canterbury, I want to thank you so much for what you and thousands of officers who represent us each and every day have said here for Senator Sessions. The Pew Research Center today released one of the largest polls of police officers ever conducted, involving some 8,000 officers in departments across the country. As a result of the high-profile fatal encounters between officers and Blacks, 3/4 of officers are more reluctant to use force when it is appropriate, and 72% have become less willing to stop and question people who seem suspicious. Now, I believe this effect stems from what has become almost a presumption that police have done something wrong when such encounters occur. That is a pernicious and dangerous shift in the general attitude toward our police, and it is totally without foundation. Now, it seems to me that this change in attitude can not only negatively affect officers and actually put police safety at risk, but also make much more difficult important efforts at community policing. Do you agree with me on that?
I absolutely agree with you. I think the case in Chicago of the young female officer that decided to take a beating rather than deploy a taser because she said it wasn't worth what she would put herself through to deploy a taser is a microcosm of what's happening in law enforcement, where it's not worth what you may have to put yourself through.
Well, that same poll found that 93% of officers have become more concerned about their own safety in this country. Yesterday, the chairman noted that the number of police killed in the line of duty has significantly increased. You've made that point. Also yesterday, Senator Sessions noted that most police are local rather than federal. The Fraternal Order of Police and other national law enforcement groups support his nomination. How do you think that a change in leadership of the Justice Department can concretely affect and improve things at the local level?
Well, first of all, the Burn Jag Grant Program, the COPS program, the community-oriented policing teams, consent decrees, pattern and practice investigations. When you have open lines of communication where rank and file, management, as well as citizen and activist groups can discuss those cases, I think you can get to a place where the communities will feel safer and the police officers will feel safer. And we've got to reduce the violence in this country. You know, Senator Hatch, we've been saying for a long time, systemic poverty is an issue that law enforcement is not charged with, nor has the ability to fix, but we're willing to be good partners. And we believe with Jeff Sessions as Attorney General, we'll be able to work in all of those sections of the Justice Department to try to improve.
We're pleased that you're here today, and we're pleased that you're willing to testify for and on his behalf. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Durbin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank all the members of the panel who are here today, and especially Oscar Vasquez, who came as my invitee for telling his inspiring life story. Thank you. You've given a face to an issue which is near and dear to my heart and the hearts of millions of Americans.
Okay, I'm reporting this to 30 Rock. There will not be a microphone moving around amongst the audience. I am it on the boom mic. So ride me. I'm going to give you a good level here at Trump Tower, but you have to ride me in 30 Rock. Thank you. No, I'm never going to come in front of you.
Which way would he come in, over there?
He's coming in behind you here. You better, you know, I'll lean back like this.
I don't want that.
Okay. Everything's good there, right? Okay.
Yes, I'm here, but I'm not standing up, so if you need me, let me know, because it's tight quarters here. Yes, sure. Hear me. Can you not hear me?
You're not passing the mic. You're not passing the mic. Okay. So I'm it. Okay, I got you.
$168 days, I think 65 days since Election Day. This is one of the longest, in fact, the longest a president-elect has ever gone past Election Day without giving a press conference. George, I don't know if you can hear me, but we are expecting Donald Trump to be out here any minute now. And of course, as John Carl said, these folders that just appeared right next to the podium, everybody in here speculating as to what these might be. He said he wasn't going to release his tax returns until the audit was complete. We're all scratching our heads as to what could be inside so many folders right here. What happened, guys? I need... What? What? What is that? I don't know what that means. They never tracked my microphone. That's an audio guide. We did 6 audio tests before. Brandon said this is the audio guide. I mean, what's the point though, Drew? You guys are asking me if you can hear me, and I'm responding, but I gotta have you guys respond back to me. I know. Okay, but when you say, just for future reference, when you get in my ear and you say, Cecilia, can you hear me? And I say yes, You got to make sure. And I said, can you hear me? I need you to respond back to me and let me know that you can hear me, because then we have a problem.
He's the nicest guy I've ever met.
I think we must supposed to stand, I think. Yeah. Well, he's the president. Cecilia? Do those need to go in there? I'm not talking about it. I'm not going to touch it right now. Should I do that? Oh, just a spare. Yeah, I do want to get him coming out.
Yeah, I'm gonna lean back like this.
Lean this way.
Lean that way? Okay.
Rudy Giuliani is walking out.
traditional cabinet, George. You have people with vast business interests. You have several billionaires, very complicated disclosure forms, and these hearings have been delayed. What transition sources have said is that they fully intend to have their disclosure forms done before the hearing started. This was a big issue for the Democrats. By the way, George, we expect President-elect Trump to be arriving any moment now. Over here to the side, we see several of his top aides. You mentioned Stephen Bannon, also Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, also Kellyanne Conway, Rudy Giuliani. We expect him down here any minute. One of the things that he and they all have offices right outside the Oval Office. You have real collection, and I'm told here he is. The elevator has opened. I can see President Trump, and there's Vice President Pence.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. We are now 9 days away from the inauguration of the next President and Vice President of the United States. It's an opportunity to be here today to allow the President-elect to take your questions. After the President-elect makes some remarks, he will introduce Ms. Sherry Dillon, a prominent attorney in Washington, D.C. with the prestigious firm of Morgan Lewis, who structured the agreements pursuant to the President's business arrangement, and she will give brief remarks. Before we start, I want to bring your attention to a few points on the report that was published in BuzzFeed last night. It's frankly outrageous and highly irresponsible for a left-wing blog that was openly hostile to the President-elect's campaign to drop highly salacious and flat-out false information on the internet just days before he takes the oath of office. According to BuzzFeed's own editor, there are some serious reasons to doubt the allegations in the report. The executive editor of the New York Times also dismissed the report by saying it was, quote, totally unsubstantiated, echoing the concerns that many other reporters expressed on the internet. The fact that BuzzFeed and CNN made the decision to run with this unsubstantiated claim is a sad and pathetic attempt to get clicks. The report is not an intelligence report, plain and simple. One issue that the report talked about was the relationship of three individuals associated with the campaign. These three individuals, Paul Manafort, Michael Cohen, and Carter Page. Carter Page is an individual who the President-elect does not know and was put on notice months ago by the campaign. Paul Manafort has adamantly denied any of this involvement, and Michael Cohen, who is said to have visited Prague in August and September, did not leave or enter the United States during this time. We asked him to produce his passport to confirm his whereabouts and the dates in question, and there was no doubt that he was not in Prague. In fact, Mr. Cohen has never been in Prague. A new report actually suggests that Michael Cohen was at the University of Southern California with his son at a baseball game. One report now suggests that apparently it's another Michael Cohen. For all the talk lately about fake news, this political witch hunt by some of the media is based on some of the most flimsy reporting and is frankly shameful and disgraceful. With that, it is my honor to introduce the next Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence.
We are 9 days away from the inauguration of the 45th President of the United States of America. I'm profoundly honored and humbled that I will take the oath of office to serve as Vice President of the United States 9 days from today, but I'm even more honored to stand shoulder to shoulder with a new president who will make America great again. Now, the President-elect's leadership and his energy during the campaign was impressive. But as the chairman of the transition effort, I can assure the American people that his energy and his vision during the course of this transition has been even more inspiring. To see the way he has brought together men and women of extraordinary capability at a historic pace in this cabinet. 19 of the 21 cabinet officials have been announced, 9 committee hearings already scheduled, 7 more soon to go on the books in the next several days. And it is a compilation of men and women with an unprecedented caliber of leadership and background to help this administration move our nation forward. Perhaps that's why there's been such a concerted effort by some in the mainstream media to delegitimize this election and to demean our incoming administration. You know, I have long been a supporter of a free and independent press, and I always will be. But with freedom comes responsibility. And the irresponsible decision of a few news organizations to run with a false and unsubstantiated report when most news organizations resisted the temptation to propagate this fake news can only be attributed to media bias, an attempt to demean the president-elect and our incoming administration, and the American people are sick and tired of it. But today, we'll get back to real news, to real facts, and the real progress our incoming president has already made in reviving the American economy and assembling a team that will make America great again. And we'll hear from the president-elect about issues that are of paramount importance to the American people today. So it is my honor to introduce to all of you my friend and the President-elect of the United States of America, Donald Trump.
Thank you very much. It's very familiar territory, news conferences, because we used to give them on a almost daily basis. I think we probably maybe won the nomination because of news conferences, and it's good to be with you. We stopped giving them because we were getting quite a bit of inaccurate news, but I do have to say that, and I must say that I want to thank a lot of the news organizations here today, because they looked at that nonsense that was released by maybe the intelligence agencies. Who knows? But maybe the intelligence agencies, which would be a tremendous blot on their record if they in fact did that. A tremendous blot. Because a thing like that should have never been written, it should never have been had, and it should certainly never have been released. But I want to thank a lot of the news organizations, for some of whom have not treated me very well over the years. A couple in particular, and they came out so strongly against that fake news and the fact that it was written about by primarily one group and one television station. So I just want to compliment many of the people in the room. I have great respect for the news and great respect for freedom of the press and all of that, but I will tell you there were some news organizations, with all that was just said, that were so professional, so incredibly professional, that I've just gone up a notch as to that, I think. Okay? All right. We've had some great news over the last couple of weeks. I've been quite active, I guess you could say, in an economic way for the country. A lot of car companies are going to be moving in. We have other companies. Big news is going to be announced over the next couple of weeks about companies that are going to be building in the Midwest. You saw it yesterday, Fiat, Chrysler. Big factory going to be built in this country as opposed to another country. Ford just announced that they stopped plans for $1 billion plant in Mexico, and they're going to be moving into Michigan and expanding very substantially an existing plant. I appreciate that from Ford. I appreciate it very much from Fiat Chrysler. I hope that General Motors will be following, and I think they will be. I think a lot of people will be following. I think a lot of industries are going to be coming back. We have to get our drug industry coming back. Our drug industry has been disastrous. They're leaving left and right. They supply our drugs, but they don't make them here to a large extent. And the other thing we have to do is create new bidding procedures for the drug industry, because they're getting away with murder. Pharma has a lot of lobbies, a lot of lobbyists, and a lot of power. And there's very little bidding on drugs. We're the largest buyer of drugs in the world, and yet we don't bid properly, and we're going to start bidding, and we're going to save billions of dollars over a period of time. And we're going to do that with a lot of other industries. I'm very much involved with the generals and admirals on the airplane, the F-35. You've been reading about it. And it's way, way behind schedule and many, many billions of dollars over budget. I don't like that. And the admirals have been fantastic. The generals have been fantastic. I've really gotten to know them well. And we're going to do some big things on the F-35 program and perhaps the F-18 program. And we're going to get those costs way down. And we're going to get the plane to be even better. And we're going to have some competition, and it's going to be a beautiful thing. So we've been very, very much involved, and other things. We had Jack Ma, we had so many incredible people coming here. Mr. Arnaud, they're going to do tremendous things in this country. And they're very excited. And I will say, if the election didn't turn out the way it turned out, they would not be here, they would not be in my office, they would not be in anybody else's office. They'd be building and doing things in other countries. So there's a great spirit going on right now, a spirit that many people have told me they've never seen before, ever. We're going to create jobs. I said that I will be the greatest jobs producer that God ever created, and I mean that. I'm going to work very hard on that. We need certain amounts of other things, including a little bit of luck, but I think we're going to do a real job, and I'm very proud of what we've done, and we haven't even gotten there yet. I look very much forward to the inauguration. It's going to be a beautiful event. We have great talent, tremendous talent, and we have all of the bands, or most of the bands, from the different segments of the military. And I've heard some of these bands over the years. They're incredible. We're going to have a very, very elegant day. The 20th is going to be something that will be very, very special, very beautiful. And I think we're going to have massive crowds because we have a movement. It's a movement like the world has never seen before. It's a movement that a lot of people didn't expect. And even the polls, although some of them did get it right, but many of them didn't. That was a beautiful scene on November 8th as those states started to pour in. And we focused very hard on those states, and they really reciprocated. And those states are going to have a lot of jobs, and they're going to have a lot of security. They're going to have a lot of good news for their veterans. And by the way, speaking of veterans, I appointed today the head secretary of the Veterans Administration, David Shulkin, and we'll do a news release in a little while. I'll tell you about David. He's fantastic. He's fantastic. He will do a truly great job. One of the commitments I've made is that we're going to straighten out the whole situation for our veterans. Our veterans have been treated horribly. They're waiting in line for 15, 16, 17 days. Cases where they go in and they have a minor early stage form of cancer and they can't see a doctor. By the time they get to the doctor, they're terminal. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So David is going to do a fantastic job. We're going to be talking to a few people also to help David. And we have some of the great hospitals of the world going to align themselves with us on the Veterans Administration, like the Cleveland Clinic, like the Mayo Clinic, a few more that we have. And we're going to set up a group. These are hospitals that have been the top of the line, the absolute top of the line. And they're going to get together with their great doctors. Dr. Toby Cosgrove, as you know, from the Cleveland Clinic, has been very involved. Ike Perlmutter has been very, very involved, one of the great men of business. And we're going to straighten out the VA for our veterans. I've been promising that for a long time. And something I feel very, very strongly. So you'll get the information on David, and I think you'll be very impressed with the job he does. We looked long and hard. We interviewed at least 100 people. Some good, some not so good, but we had a lot of talent. And we think this election will be something that will, with time, with time, straighten it out, and straighten it out for good, because our veterans have been treated very unfairly. Okay. Questions? Yes. John?
Mr. President-elect, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. A couple of aspects of the intelligence briefing that you received on Friday that we're looking for further clarification on.
Sure.
First of all, did the heads of the intelligence agencies provide you with a 2-page summary of these unsubstantiated allegations? And secondly to that, on the broader picture, do you accept their opinion that Vladimir Putin ordered the hack of the DNC and the attempted hack of the RNC? And if you do, how will that color your attempts to build a relationship with a leader who has been accused of committing an act of espionage against the United States?
These meetings, as you know, are confidential, classified, so I'm not allowed to talk about what went on in the meeting. But we had many witnesses in that meeting, many of them with us. And I will say again, I think it's a disgrace that information would be let out. I saw the information, I read the information outside of that meeting. It's all fake news, it's phony stuff. It didn't happen. And it was gotten by opponents of ours, as you know, because you reported it and so did many of the other people. It was a group of opponents that got together, sick people, and they put that crap together. So I will tell you that not within the meeting, but outside of the meeting, somebody released it. It should never have been, number one, shouldn't have even entered paper, but it should never have been released. But I read what was released, and I think it's a disgrace. I think it's an absolute disgrace. As far as hacking, I think it was Russian, but I think we also get hacked by other countries and other people. And I can say that, you know, when we lost 22 million names and everything else that was hacked recently, they didn't make a big deal out of that. That was something that was extraordinary. That was probably China. We have much hacking going on. Mm-hmm. One of the things we're going to do, we have some of the greatest computer minds anywhere in the world that we've assembled. You saw just a sample of it 2 weeks ago up here where we had the 6 top people in the world that would never in the same room together as a group. And we're going to put those minds together and we're going to form a defense. And I have to say this also. The Democratic National Committee was totally open to be hacked. They did a very poor job. They could have had hacking defense, which we had. And I will give Reince Priebus credit, because when Reince saw what was happening in the world and with this country, he went out and went to various firms and ordered a very, very strong hacking defense. And they tried to hack the Republican National Committee, and they were unable to break through. We have to do that for our country. It's very important.
And just to the last part of that question, where I said, how could all of this potentially color your attempts to build a better relationship with President Putin?
Well, you know, President Putin and Russia put out a statement today that this fake news was indeed fake news. They said it totally never happened. Now, somebody would say, oh, of course he's going to say that. I respected the fact that he said that. And I'll be honest, I think if he did have something, they would have released it. They would have been glad to release it. I think, frankly, had they broken into the Republican National Committee, I think they would have released it, just like they did about Hillary and all of the horrible things that her people, like Mr. Podesta, said about her. I mean, what he said about her was horrible. If somebody said about me what Podesta said about Hillary, I was the boss, I would have fired him immediately, or that person, because what he said about her was horrible. But remember this, we talk about the hacking. Hacking's bad, and it shouldn't be done. But look at the things that were hacked. Look at what was learned from that hacking. That Hillary Clinton got the questions to the debate and didn't report it? That's a horrible thing. That's a horrible thing. Can you imagine that if Donald Trump got the questions to the debate, it would have been the biggest story in the history of stories. And they would have said, immediately you have to get out of the race. Nobody even talked about it. It's a very terrible thing.
Yes, President-elect, can I ask you a question, sir? Thank you, Mr. President-elect. On that intelligence report, the second part of their conclusion was that Vladimir Putin ordered it because he aspired to help you in the election. Do you accept that part of the finding? And will you undo what President Obama did to punish the Russians for this, or will you keep it in place?
If Putin likes Donald Trump, I consider that an asset, not a liability. Because we have a horrible relationship with Russia. Russia can help us fight ISIS, which, by the way, is number one tricky. I mean, if you look, this administration created ISIS by leaving at the wrong time. The void was created, ISIS was formed. If Putin likes Donald Trump, guess what, folks? That's called an asset, not a liability. Now, I don't know that I'm going to get along with Vladimir Putin. I hope I do, but there's a good chance I won't. And if I don't, do you honestly believe that Hillary would be tougher on Putin than me? Does anybody in this room really believe that? Give me a break.
But President Obama's steps, will you keep on make clear whether during your visits to either Moscow or St. Petersburg you engaged in conduct that you now regret, and that a reasonable observer say that you are potentially vulnerable to blackmail by Russia or by its intelligence agencies?
Let me just tell you what I do. When I leave our country, I'm a very high-profile person, would you say? I am extremely careful. I'm surrounded by bodyguards. I'm surrounded by people. And I always tell them, anywhere, but I always tell them, if I'm leaving this country, be very careful, because in your hotel rooms, and no matter where you go, you're going to probably have cameras. I'm not referring just to Russia, but I would certainly put them in that category. And number one, I hope you're going to be good anyway. But in those rooms, you have cameras in the strangest places. Cameras that are so small with modern technology, you can't see them and you won't know. You better be careful, or you'll be watching yourself on nightly television. I tell this to people all the time. I was in Russia years ago with the Miss Universe contest, which did very well. Moscow, the Moscow area, did very, very well. And I told many people, be careful, because you don't want to see yourself on television. Cameras all over the place. And again, not just Russia, all over. Does anyone really believe that story? I'm also very much of a germaphobe, by the way. Believe me.
One more question, sir.
About how you plan to disentangle yourself from your business. But first, I have to follow up on some of these Russia remarks. Based on your comments here today, do you believe the hacking was justified? Does Russia have any leverage over you, financial or otherwise? And if not, will you release your tax returns to prove it?
So I tweeted out that I have no dealings with Russia. I have no deals in Russia. I have no deals that could happen in Russia because we've stayed away. And I have no loans with Russia. As a real estate developer, I have very, very little debt. I have assets that are, and now people have found out how big the company is. I have very little debt, I have very low debt. But I have no loans with Russia at all. And I thought that was important to put in. I certified that. So I have no deals, I have no loans, and I have no dealings. We could make deals in Russia very easily if we wanted to. I just don't want to because I think that would be a conflict. So I have no loans, no dealings, and no current pending deals. Now I have to say one other thing. Over the weekend, I was offered $2 billion to do a deal in Dubai with a very, very, very amazing man, great, great developer from the Middle East, Hussein Damak, a friend of mine, great guy, and was offered $2 billion to do a deal in Dubai, number of deals. And I turned it down. I didn't have to turn it down, because as you know, I have a no conflict situation because I'm president, which is, I didn't know about that until about 3 months ago, but it's a nice thing to have. But I don't want to take advantage of something. I have something that others don't have. Vice President Pence also has it. I don't think he'll need it. I have a feeling he's not going to need it. But I have a no conflict of interest provision as president. It was many, many years old. This is for presidents, because they don't want presidents getting, I understand it. They don't want presidents getting tangled up in minutia. They want a president to run the country. So I could actually run my business. I could actually run my business and run government at the same time. I don't like the way that looks, but I would be able to do that if I wanted to. I'd be the only one that would be able to do that. You can't do that in any other capacity. But as a president, I could run the Trump Organization, great, great company, and I could run the company. I think the country, I do a very good job, but I don't want to do that. Now, All of these papers that you see here. Yes,
I
go
just
ahead.
wanted to follow up on that before we get
Sure.
to the conflicts. Do you believe the hacking was justified, and will you release your tax returns to prove what you're saying about no deals in Russia?
Well, not releasing the tax returns because, as you know, they're under audit.
But every president since the 70s has
Oh,
had a
gee, I've
required
never
audit
heard
from the
that.
IRS.
Oh,
The
gee,
last
I've never
6
heard
have
that.
released him. But as
I've never
president,
heard that.
sir, as
You know,
you're
the only
taking
one that cares
office,
about my tax returns are the reporters. Okay?
you don't think the
They're
American
all
public is concerned
but
about
no,
that?
I don't think so. I won.
Do you believe the
When I became
hacking?
president. No, I don't think they care at all. I don't think they care at all. I think you care. I think you care. First of all, you learn very little from a tax return. What you should do is go down to federal elections and take a look at the numbers. And actually, people have learned a lot about my company, and now they realize my company is much bigger, much more powerful than they ever thought. We're in many, many countries, and I'm very proud of it. And what I'm going to be doing is my 2 sons, who are right here, Don and Eric, are going to be running the company. They are going to be running it in a very professional manner. They're not going to discuss it with me. Again, I don't have to do this. They're not going to discuss it with me. And with that, I'm going to bring up Sherry Dillon, and she's going to go, these papers are just some of the many documents that I've signed, turning over complete and total control to my son.
Sir, can we ask you one more question on Russia, though, sir?
Do you believe it was justified?
Good morning. It's my honor and privilege to be here today at President-elect Trump's request. He's asked me, as you've just heard, to speak about the conflicts of interest and the steps he's taking. As you know, the business empire built by President-elect Trump over the years is massive, not dissimilar to the fortunes of Nelson Rockefeller when he became vice president. But at that time, no one was so concerned. President-elect Trump wants the American public to rest assured that all of his efforts are directed to pursuing the people's business and not his own. To that end, as he explained a few moments ago, he directed me and my colleagues at the law firm Morgan, Lewis & Bockius to design a structure for his business empire that would completely isolate him from the management of the company. He further instructed that we build in protections that will assure the American people the decisions he makes and the actions that he takes as president are for their benefit and not to support his financial interests. As he said, he's voluntarily taking this on. The conflicts of interest laws simply do not apply to the president or the vice president, and they are not required to separate themselves from their financial assets. The primary conflicts of interest statute, since some have questioned this, is Section 18 U.S.C. 208, and it's simply inapplicable by its terms. And this is not just our interpretation. It's Congress itself who made this clear in 1989 when it amended Section 18 U.S.C. 202 to state that, except as otherwise provided, the terms office and employee in Section 208 shall not include the president. Even so, President-elect Trump wants there to be no doubt in the minds of the American public that he is completely isolating himself from his business interests. He instructed us to take all steps realistically possible to make it clear that he is not exploiting the office of the presidency for his personal benefit. He also sought the guidance of individuals who are familiar with and have worked extensively in the fields of government ethics and constitutional law. Critical to the Morgan Lewis team is Fred Fielding, standing here to our side and with us today. And many of you have known him. He has served several presidents over the years, including serving as counsel to Presidents Ronald Reagan and George W. Bush, as well as serving on President George H.W. Bush's Commission on Federal Ethics Law Reform, and he also held the position of Vice Chair of the Ethics Resource Center. Mr. Fielding has been extensively involved with and approved this plan. He's here today to support the plan, and he will continue to provide guidance as the plan is implemented and as Eric, Don, along with others, take over management of the Trump Organization. I'm going to detail some of the extraordinary steps now that the President-elect is taking. First, President-elect Trump's investments in business assets, commonly known as the Trump Organization, comprising hundreds of entities, which again, if you all go and take a look at his financial disclosure statement, the pages and pages and pages of entities have all been or will be conveyed to a trust prior to January 20th. Here is just some of the paperwork that's taken care of those actions. Second, through the trust agreement, he has relinquished leadership and management of the Trump Organization to his sons, Don and Eric, and a longtime Trump executive, Alan Weisselberg. Together, Don, Eric, and Alan will have the authority to manage the Trump Organization and will make decisions for the duration of the presidency without any involvement whatsoever by President-elect Trump. Further, at the President-elect's direction, the trust agreement provides to ensure the Trump Organization continues to operate in accordance with the highest and legal ethics standards, an ethics advisor will be appointed to the management team. The written approval of the ethics advisor will be required for new deals, actions, and transactions that could potentially raise ethics or conflicts of interest concerns. President-elect Trump, as well as Don, Eric, and Alan, are committed to ensuring that the activities of the Trump Organization are beyond reproach and cannot be perceived to be exploitive of the office of the presidency. President-elect Trump will resign from all officer and other positions he holds with the Trump Organization entities. Further, in addition, his daughter Ivanka will have no further involvement with or management authority whatsoever with the Trump Organization. As she and Jared move their family to D.C., Ivanka will be focused on settling her children into their new homes and their new schools. The President-elect has also already disposed of all of his investments in publicly traded or easily liquidated investments. As a result, the trust will have two types of assets. First, it will hold liquid assets, cash, cash equivalents, and treasuries, and perhaps some positions in a government-approved diversified portfolio, one that is consistent with the regulations from the Office of Government Ethics. Second, the trust is going to hold its pre-existing, illiquid, but very valuable business assets, the ones that everyone here is familiar with. Trump-owned, operated, and branded golf clubs, commercial rental property, resorts, hotels, rights to royalties from pre-existing licenses of Trump marks, productions, and goods. So things like Trump Tower, Mar-a-Lago, all of his other business assets, 40 Wall Street, will all be in the trust. Through instructions in the trust agreement, President-elect Trump first ordered that all pending deals be terminated. This impacted more than 30 deals, many of which were set to close by the end of 2016. As you can well imagine, that caused an immediate financial loss of millions of dollars, not just for President-elect Trump, but also for Don, Ivanka, and Eric. The trust agreement, as directed by President Trump, imposes severe restrictions on new deals. No new foreign deals will be made whatsoever during the duration of President Trump's presidency. New domestic deals will be allowed, but they will go through a vigorous vetting process. The President-elect will have no role in deciding whether the Trump Organization engages in any new deal, and he will only know of a deal if he reads it in the paper or sees it on TV. Because any new deal could, and I emphasize could, be perceived as causing a conflict or as exploiting the office of the presidency, new deals must be vetted with the ethics advisor, whose role will be to analyze any potential transactions for conflicts and ethics issues. The ethics advisor will be a recognized expert in the field of government experts. Again, his role will be to scrutinize the new deals and the actions, and any new deal must receive written approval. To further reinforce the wall that we are building between President-elect Trump and the Trump Organization, President-elect Trump has ordered, through his trust agreement, to sharply limit his information rights. Reports will only be available and reflect profit and loss on the company as a whole. There will be no separate business-by-business accounting. Another step that President-elect Trump has taken is he created a new position at the Trump Organization, the position of Chief Compliance Counsel, whose responsibility will be to ensure that the Trump businesses, again, are operating at the highest levels of integrity and not taking any actions that could be perceived as exploiting the office of the presidency. He has also directed that no communications of the Trump Organization, including social media accounts, will reference or be tied to President-elect Trump's role as President of the United States or the office of the presidency. In sum, all of these actions, complete relinquishment of management, no foreign deals, ethics advisor approval of deals, sharply limited information rights will sever President-elect Trump's presidency from the Trump Organization. Some have asked questions. Why not divest? Why not just sell everything? Form a blind trust. And I'd like to turn to addressing some of those questions now. Selling, first and foremost, would not eliminate possibilities of conflicts of interest. In fact, it would exacerbate them. The Trump brand is key to the value of the Trump Organization's assets. If President-elect Trump sold his brand, he would be entitled to royalties for the use of it, and this would result in the trust retaining an interest in the brand without the ability to assure that it does not exploit the office of the presidency. Further, whatever price was paid would be subject to criticism and scrutiny. Was it too high? Is there pay for play? Was it too much paid to curry favor with the president-elect? And selling his assets without the rights to the brand would greatly diminish the value of the assets and create a fire sale. President-elect Trump should not be expected to destroy the company he built. This plan offers a suitable alternative to address the concerns of the American people. And selling the entire Trump Organization isn't even feasible. Some people have suggested that the president-elect sell the business to his adult children. This would require massive third-party debt sourced with multiple lenders whose motives and willingness to participate would be questioned and undoubtedly investigated. And if the president-elect were to finance the sale himself, he would retain the financial interest in the assets that he owns now. Some people have suggested that President-elect Trump could bundle the assets and turn the Trump Organization into a public company. Anyone who's ever gone through this extraordinarily cumbersome and complicated process knows that it is a non-starter. It is not realistic, and it would be inappropriate for the Trump Organization. Some people have suggested a blind trust, but you cannot have a totally blind trust with operating businesses. President Trump can't unknow he owns Trump Tower, and the press will make sure that any new developments at the Trump Organization are well publicized. Further, it would be impossible to find an institutional trustee that would be competent to run the Trump Organization. The approach he is taking allows Don and Eric to preserve this great company and its iconic assets. And this approach is best from a conflicts and ethics perspective. It creates a complete separation from President-elect Trump and separates him and prevents him from participating in the business, imposes strict limits on what the trustees can do, and requires the assent of any ethics advisor to a new deal. I'm going to turn to one last topic today that has been of interest lately, called emoluments. That's a word I think we've all become familiar with and perhaps had not heard before. And we're going to describe some other actions the President-elect Trump is taking to avoid even the appearance of a conflict. Emoluments comes from the Constitution. The Constitution says officials may not accept gifts, titles of nobility, or emoluments from foreign governments with respect to their office, and that no benefit should be derived by holding an office. The so-called emoluments clause has never been interpreted, however, to apply to fair value exchanges that have absolutely nothing to do with an office holder. No one would have thought when the Constitution was written that paying your hotel bill was an emolument. Instead, it would have been thought of as a value for value exchange, not a gift, not a title, and not an emolument. But since President-elect Trump has been elected, some people want to define emoluments to cover routine business transactions, like paying for hotel rooms. They suggest that the Constitution prohibits the businesses from even arm's-length transactions that the President-elect has absolutely nothing to do with and isn't even aware of. These people are wrong. This is not what the Constitution says. Paying for a hotel room is not a gift or a present, and it has nothing to do with an office. It's not an emolument. The Constitution does not require President-elect Trump to do anything here. But just like with conflicts of interests, he wants to do more than what the Constitution requires. So President-elect Trump has decided, and we are announcing today, that he is going to voluntarily donate all profits from foreign government payments made to his hotels to the United States Treasury. This way, it is the American people who will profit. In sum, I and President-elect's other advisors at Morgan Lewis have determined the approach we've outlined today will avoid potential conflicts of interest or concerns regarding exploitation of the office of the presidency without imposing unnecessary and unreasonable losses on the president-elect and his family. We believe this structure and these steps will serve to accomplish the president-elect's desire to be isolated from his business interests and give the American people confidence that his sole business and interest is in making America great again, bringing back jobs to this country, securing our borders, and rebuilding our infrastructure. The American people were well aware of President-elect Trump's business empire and financial interests when they voted. Many people voted for him precisely because of his business success. President-elect Trump wants to bring this success to all Americans. Thank you.
Mr. Trump. Mr. Trump, can we ask you? Mr. Trump, can we ask you some policy questions? Policy questions, sir.
Trump, thank you, Mr. Trump. Trey Yanks with One American News. What is your response to your critics that say not only you but also your cabinet is filled with conflicts of interest, and you plan to set an example in the future to make sure that your cabinet and everyone throughout your administration?
Good question. I really think that when you watch what's going on with what's happening in Washington, I was just watching as an example Rex Tillerson. I think it's brilliant what he's doing and what he's saying. I watched yesterday, as you know, our great senator who is going to be a great attorney general, and he was brilliant. And what people don't know is that he was a great prosecutor and attorney general in Alabama, and he was brilliant yesterday. So I really think that I think we have one of the great cabinets ever put together. And we've been hearing that from so many people. People are so happy. You know, in the case of Rex, he ran incredibly ExxonMobil. When there was a fine, he would get it. When they needed something, he would be there. A friend of mine who's very, very substantial in the oil business, Harold Hamm, big supporter. He said, there's nobody in the business like Rex Tillerson. And that's what we want. That's what I want to bring to government. I want to bring the greatest people into government because we're way behind. We don't make good deals anymore. I say it all the time in speeches. We don't make good deals anymore. We make bad deals. Our trade deals are a disaster. We have hundreds of billions of dollars of losses on a yearly basis. Hundreds of billions with China on trade and trade imbalance, with Japan, with Mexico, with just about everybody. We don't make good deals anymore. So we need people that are smart. We need people that are successful. And they got successful because, generally speaking, they're smart. And that's what I put. I'm very proud of the cabinet. I think they're doing very well. It's very interesting how it's going, but I think they're doing very, very well.
On Russia, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President-elect. I wanted to ask a few questions on Obamacare.
Yeah.
Can you be specific on what guidance you're giving congressional Republicans on the timeline for repeal and replace,
Sure.
whether it needs to be simultaneous or a
Finally,
delay?
Obamacare. I thought it was never going to be asked.
I also wanted to ask you, though, if you have outlined a plan for what you want the replace package to look like. Would it guarantee coverage for those who have gotten health insurance through the current Obamacare law?
You're going to be very, very proud, as not only the media and reporters, you're going to be very proud of what we put forth having to do with health care. Obamacare is a complete and total disaster. They can say what they want. They can guide you any way they want to guide you. In some cases, they guide you incorrectly. In most cases, you realize what's happened. It's imploding as we sit. Some states have over 100% increase. And 17, and I said this 2 years ago, 17 is going to be the bad year. It's going to be catastrophic. Frankly, we could sit back, and it was a thought from a political standpoint, but it wouldn't be fair to the people. We could sit back and wait and watch and criticize. And we could be a Chuck Schumer and sit back and criticize it, and people would come, they would come, begging to us, please, we have to do something about Obamacare. We don't want to own it.
we don't want to own it politically. They own it right now. So the easiest thing would be to let it implode in 17, and believe me, we'd get pretty much whatever we wanted, but it would take a long time. We're going to be submitting, as soon as our secretary is approved, almost simultaneously, shortly thereafter, a plan. It'll be repeal and replace. It will be essentially simultaneously. It will be various segments, you understand, but will most likely be on the same day or the same week, but probably the same day, could be the same hour. So we're going to do repeal and replace, very complicated stuff. And we're going to get a health bill passed. We're going to get health care taken care of in this country. You have deductibles that are so high that after people go broke paying their premiums, which are going through the roof, the health care can't even be used by them because the deductibles are so high. Obamacare is the Democrats' problem. We are going to take the problem off the shelves for them. We're doing them a tremendous service by doing it. We could sit back and let them hang with it. We are doing the Democrats a great service. So as soon as our secretary is approved and gets into the office, we'll be filing a plan. And it was actually pretty accurately reported today, the New York Times. And the plan will be repeal and replace Obamacare. We're going to have a health care that is far less expensive and far better. Okay. Well, I was going right here. All right, go ahead, then CBS. Go. Well, if I can save jobs, for instance, I was doing individual companies, and people said, well, but that's only one company, like we did a good job with Carrier. And I want to thank United Technologies, which owns Carrier. But we saved close to 1,000 jobs. And they were gone. And Mike Pence and his staff really helped us a lot. But those were that was a tough one because they announced a year and a half before that they were leaving. So it's always tough. When they're building a plant, it's a little tougher than before they start or before they make an announcement. So I want to thank United Technologies. But we've been meeting with a lot of companies. But what really is happening is the word is now out that when you
All right, guys, we're dealing with some technical difficulties regarding the Donald Trump press conference. We're working to get that back for you in just a second. We apologize for that. Give me 1 second. Let me go ahead and pull up a source for you. And stand by, guys. We are having, again, some technical difficulties. Bear with us. We're working to get it fixed for you in just a second. In the meantime, we are going to go ahead and pull up the Rex Tillerson confirmation hearing. Again, we'll bring you back to the Trump press conference in just a second.
It's your birthday, case in point, lady over there. Yes, there you are. Happy birthday. Thank you.
Son Albert F. Turner Jr. thinks Senator Sessions handled their case fairly. He said this in the letter, quote, "My family and I have literally been on the front line of the fight for civil rights my whole life, and while I respect the deeply held positions of other civil rights advocates who oppose Senator Sessions, I believe it's important for me to speak out. with regard to...
On the fence. It's not a fence, it's a wall. You just misreported it. We're going to build a wall. I could wait about a year and a half until we finish our negotiations with Mexico, which will start immediately after we get to office, but I don't want to wait. Mike Pence is leading an effort to get final approvals through various agencies and through Congress for the wall to begin. I don't feel like waiting a year or a year and a half. We're going to start building. Mexico, in some form, and there are many different forms, will reimburse us, and they will reimburse us for the cost of the wall. That will happen, whether it's a tax or whether it's a payment, probably less likely that it's a payment, but it will happen. So remember this, okay? I would say we are going to build a wall, and people would go crazy. I would then say, who's going to pay for the wall? And people would all scream out, 25, 30,000 people, because nobody's ever had crowds like Trump has had. You know that. You don't like to report that, but that's okay. Okay, now he agrees. Finally, he agrees. But I say, who's going to pay for the wall? And they will scream out, Mexico. Now, reports went out last week, oh, Mexico's not going to pay for the wall because of a reimbursement. What's the difference? I want to get the wall started. I don't want to wait a year and a half until I make my deal with Mexico. So, and we probably will have a deal sooner than that. And by the way, Mexico has been so nice, so nice. I respect the government of Mexico. I respect the people of Mexico. I love the people of Mexico. I have many people from Mexico working for me. They're phenomenal people. The government of Mexico is terrific. I don't blame them for what's happened. I don't blame them for taking advantage of the United States. I wish our politicians were so smart. Mexico has taken advantage of the United States. I don't blame the representatives and various presidents, etc., of Mexico. What I say is we shouldn't have allowed that to happen. It's not going to happen anymore. So in order to get the wall started, Mexico will pay for the wall, but it'll be reimbursed. Okay? Supreme Court judge. So, as you know, I have a list of 20. I've gone through them. We've met with numerous candidates. They're outstanding in every case. They were largely recommended and highly recommended by Federalist Society. Jim DeMint was also very much involved in his group, which is fantastic, and he's a fantastic guy. So between Leo and Jim DeMint and some senators and some Congress people, we have a great group of people. I'll be making the decision on who we will put up for Justice of the United States Supreme Court, a replacement for the great, great Justice Scalia. That will be probably within 2 weeks of the 20th. So within about 2 weeks, probably the second week. I consider the first day because we'll also be doing some pretty good signings. And I think what we'll do is we'll wait till Monday. That will be our really first business day as opposed to doing it on Friday, because on Friday people are going to have a very good time at the inauguration. And then Saturday, as you know, we're having a big church service and lots of good things are happening. So our first day, and you'll all be invited to the signings, but we'll be doing some pretty good signings on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday, and then also the next week. And you're all invited. But on the Supreme Court, I'll be making that decision, and it'll be a decision which I very strongly believe in. I think it's one of the reasons I got elected. I think the people of this country did not want to see what was happening with the Supreme Court. So I think it was a very, very big decision as to why I was elected. I think it was disgraceful that the intelligence agencies allowed any information that turned out to be so false and fake out. I think it's a disgrace. And I say that, and that's something that Nazi Germany would have done and did do. I think it's a disgrace. That information that was false and fake and never happened got released to the public. As far as BuzzFeed, which is a failing pile of garbage, writing it, I think they're going to suffer the consequences. They already are. And as far as CNN going out of their way to build it up, and by the way, we just found out I was coming down, Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen is a very talented lawyer. He's a good lawyer in my firm. It was just reported that it wasn't this Michael Cohen they were talking about. So all night long, it's Michael Cohen. I said, I want to see your passport. He brings his passport to my office. I say, hey, wait a minute. He didn't leave the country. He wasn't out of the country. They had Michael Cohen of the Trump Organization was in Prague. It turned out to be a different Michael Cohen. It's a disgrace what took place. It's a disgrace. And I think they ought to apologize to start with Michael Cohen. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. No, not you. Not you. Your organization's terrible. Your organization's terrible. Let's go. Go ahead. Quiet. Quiet. Go ahead. She's asking a question. Don't be rude. Don't be rude. Don't be rude. No, I'm not going to give you a question. I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir,
go ahead.
Can you state categorically that nobody... No, Mr. President-elect, that's not appropriate.
President Obama went too far with the sanctions he put on Russia after the hacking? Do you think they're
I don't say he went too far.
And what
No.
will you roll them back?
No.
And what do you think of Lindsey
I don't
Graham's
say-
plan to send you a bill for tougher ones?
Plans to send me a bill for what?
For tougher sanctions. Lindsey Graham.
I hadn't heard Lindsey Graham was going to do that. Lindsey Graham. I've been competing with him for a long time, and he's going to crack that 1% barrier one day. I didn't realize Lindsey Graham's still at it. It's all right. I think Lindsey Graham's a nice guy, actually. I've heard that he's a nice guy, and I've been hearing it. I've been hearing it. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. You've been waiting. Go ahead. Go ahead. Stand up, please. What? BBC News. That's another beauty. There's nothing they can come back with. Okay, yes, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Well, I don't recommend reforms. I recommend people that are that have some moral compass. I've been hearing more and more about a thing called fake news, and they're talking about people that go and say all sorts of things. But I will tell you, some of the media outlets that I deal with are fake news, more so than anybody. I could name them, but I won't bother. But you have few sitting right in front of us. So they're very, very dishonest people. But I think it's just something we're going to have to live with. I guess the advantage I have is that I can speak back. When it happens to somebody that doesn't have that kind of a megaphone, they can't speak back. It's a very sad thing. I've seen people destroyed. I've seen people absolutely destroyed, and I think it's very unfair. So all I can ask for is honest reporters. Yes.
Community and be very clear about what you're saying. Do you trust your U.S. intelligence officials? And what do you say to foreign policy experts who say you're actually weakening national security by waging this war of words against that community?
Intelligence agencies are vital and very, very important. We are going to be putting in, as you know, Mr. Pompeo and others, you know the Senator, Dan Coates, we're going to be putting in some outstanding people. Within 90 days, they're going to be coming back to me with a major report on hacking. I want them to cover this situation. I also want them, however, to cover maybe most importantly, because we're hacked by everybody. You know, the United States, our government, out of a list of 17 in terms of industries, is the worst. It's number 17 in terms of protection. If you look at the retail industry, if you look at the banking industry, various industries, out of 17 industries, they put this in the category of an industry, the United States is last in terms of protecting, let's say, hacking defense. Like we had a great hacking defense at the Republican National Committee. That's why we weren't hacked. By the way, we were told they were trying to hack us, but they weren't able to hack. And I think I get some credit because I told Reince, and Reince did a phenomenal job, but I said, I want strong hacking defense. The Democratic National Committee didn't do that. Maybe that's why the country runs so badly that way. But I will tell you, wait, let me finish. Within 90 days, we will be coming up with a major report on hacking defense. How do we stop this new phenomena, fairly new phenomena? Because the United States is hacked by everybody. That includes Russia and China and everybody. Everybody. Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead. Well, Russia, but you know what? Could have been others also. Well, I think it's pretty sad when intelligence reports get leaked out to the press. I think it's pretty sad. First of all, it's illegal. You know, these are classified and certified meetings and reports. And I'll tell you what does happen. I have many meetings with intelligence, and every time I meet, people are reading about it. Somebody's leaking it out. So then I said, maybe it's my office. Maybe my office, because I have a lot of people, a lot of great people. Maybe it's them. And what I did is I said, I won't tell anybody. I'm going to have a meeting, and I won't tell anybody about my meeting with intelligence. And what happened is I had my meeting. Nobody knew, not even Rona, my executive assistant for years. She didn't know. I didn't tell her. Nobody knew. The meeting was had. The meeting was over. They left. And immediately, the word got out that I had a meeting. So I don't want that. I don't want that. It's very unfair to the country. It's very unfair to our country what's happened. That report should have never, first of all, it shouldn't have been printed because it's not worth the paper it's written on. And I thank the New York Times for saying that. I thank a lot of different people for saying that. But I will tell you, that should never, ever happen. Okay. He shouldn't be doing it. He won't be doing it. Russia will have much greater respect for our country when I'm leading it than when other people have led it. You will see that. Russia will respect our country more. He shouldn't have done it. I don't believe he'll be doing it more. Now, we have to work something out, but it's not just Russia. Take a look at what's happened. You don't report it the same way. 22 million accounts were hacked in this country by China. And that's because we have no defense. That's because we're run by people that don't know what they're doing. Russia will have far greater respect for our country when I'm leading it. And I believe, and I hope, maybe it won't happen, it's possible, but I won't be given a little reset button like Hillary. Here, press this piece of plastic. Guy looked at her like, what is she doing? There's no reset button. We're either going to get along or we're not. I hope we get along, but if we don't, that's possible too. But Russia and other countries, including China, which has taken total advantage of us economically, totally advantage of us in the South China Sea by building their massive fortress, total. Russia, China, Japan, Mexico, all countries will respect us far more than they do under past administrations. I want to thank everybody. So this is all, just so you understand, these papers, because I'm not sure that was explained properly, but these papers are all just a piece of the many, many companies that are being put into trust to be run by my two sons. And I hope at the end of 8 years I'll come back and I'll say, oh, you did a good job. Otherwise, if they do a bad job, I'll say, you're fired. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye.
I saw that he had his cards in his pocket.
All right, joining me now is Fox 10's Troy Hayden. Troy, that was quite a press conference.
I think so.
Oh
And
my
Eric
gosh.
and Don are on notice that if they don't handle the Trump business interests, they're fired. How about that at the end?
Well, that's the thing. So for those of you tuning in, maybe you didn't catch the middle of the press conference, Trump had his lawyer come on
Right.
and talk about what they were doing to make sure that Trump's conflicts of interest weren't an issue. Because that's a big topic for a lot of the people out there that are questioning how well of a job Donald Trump can do as President of the United States, given
Right.
all of his international dealings.
And can he divest himself from a company that bears his name? And in many cases, the company is his name.
Right,
Right.
that's his brand.
What he trades on is that Trump name
Right.
that they put on so many different buildings. And so the argument that was made by the attorney out there, she said, look, you can't just sell the company.
Right.
That's what a lot of people said. I mean, if you putting the company in the care of his sons is one thing, but people would say, well, obviously you're going to have an interest in how your company does.
Right.
Number one, because it's your sons
Mhm.
operating it, and it's the company that you personally built. Why don't you sell the company? And the lawyer came up and said, well, you can't sell the company because much of the company is his name. And so even if you sell the company, much of the profits of that company come about with licensing the name. So there's still going to be ties to Donald Trump no matter what you do with that company. But that was only part of the whole thing, was how he's going to divest himself. The early part of the news conference was based on these allegations that came mostly with BuzzFeed and different things dealing with Russia. And, I think most people watching would say that Trump did a very clear job of saying they're not true.
Right.
They're not true. I didn't do them. I didn't do these things. We don't know where they came from. And even congratulated some of the press for not going with the story.
Well, speaking of the press, though, at in the second half of that press conference, things got a little feisty. So there were reporters that were trying to ask questions, and he basically blatantly ignored a number of the reporters, and not only just ignored them by skipping over them, but called them out on the fact that he was ignoring them by saying, "Not you, not you." Not you. You're fake news. And it's one of these clips. I just tweeted it. I just tweeted this link right now because we clipped that moment where Trump just blatantly ignored all the reporters. So if you haven't seen it, you guys can
Let's
watch
watch
it there.
You want to watch
Or
it real
I can
quick?
show everyone, yeah.
Yeah, let's put it up. This is what makes Donald Trump different.
Different than any other.
Than previous presidents. I mean, there's always been, over the course of history, there have been testy exchanges
Right.
with the press and presidents. But this is something that I think we may see a lot of over the next 4 years. You want to watch it?
Yeah, I'm going to pull this up now. Let's go ahead. All right.
Can I hear it?
Yeah, I'm just going to pull this up. All right, guys, so this just happened. Stand by.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. No, not you. Not you. Your organization's terrible. Your organization's terrible. Let's go. Go ahead. Quiet. Quiet. Go ahead. She's asking a question. Don't be rude. Don't be rude. Don't be rude. No, I'm not going to give you a question. I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir,
Go ahead.
can you state categorically that nobody... No, Mr. President-elect, that's not appropriate.
You think President Obama went too far with the...
So
You're fake news, he said.
you're fake news. Your organization's terrible. Your organization's terrible. So, if you guys want to share that video clip, you can find it on my Twitter. It's quite...
Donald Trump is going to tell you what he thinks.
Oh, no question. And I think that's his whole appeal, and that's what drew so many people to him in the beginning. They liked his tell it like it is attitude. They liked that he wasn't politically correct, that he never held back. A lot of people wondered, well, now that he's actually President of the United States, will he tone things down a bit?
Donald Trump is pretty far down the road of life. And I think at this point, you're not going to change who you are. I mean, he may try to change some of his behavior going forward and try to maybe tone some things. I mean, who knows?
Right.
We've got 4 years to kind of look at what he's going to do and then see if if the voters want to give him another 4. But I think it's going to be really interesting to watch, basically the evolution of Donald Trump as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
Because think about this. I mean, he has dealt with primarily his business interests, where if you've watched much of him in action, and I'm not just talking about The Apprentice. I remember I used to watch a golf show that he was a part of on the Golf Channel, and he would go to all of his different golf courses, and he's got many of them. But you watch him kind of walk through a room, and it's always kind of like, I like what you're doing. I don't like that. You change that. You go over here. great to meet you. You're doing a great job managing. You're not so much. You know, he just can walk around and point and make stuff happen. And in some cases, he can with executive orders in Washington, but in other cases, he's dealing with Congress. He's dealing with the Supreme Court. So how is he, a man who's used to getting his way and used to being able to say, get this done now, how is he going to deal with maybe not having that happen all the time?
Right. Well, it's going to be interesting. I'm actually surprised by the news, the BuzzFeed report that did leak yesterday, or that did come out yesterday.
You're not surprised in what
No,
way?
I am surprised.
Oh, you're surprised.
I'm
Okay.
surprised that it happened just because Donald Trump is now president-elect. And sometimes I think that more people, I just assume that people would approach that position with a little more respect.
Well, you know, here's the deal, and I see both sides of it, in that if these pages, and I only read the first page of the multi-page report, if those pages were actually part of that classified briefing that was given to President Obama and also to President-elect Trump, but that, I believe at the beginning of the news conference he said he never saw those papers.
Right.
But if they were connected to that briefing, that does make them newsworthy. Now, and I think a lot of organizations handled it the right way by saying there are some allegations of things going on. I think other sites went over the line, and even in fact on our morning show today we talked about this. I didn't want to go into details of what was in that report.
No, you didn't want to be salacious about it and be gossipy and tabloidy.
Right. I think once you start naming off the things that are listed in there that are totally unsubstantiated, that goes over the line.
Right, and all you need to do is go on the internet and see what's trending to see what people are talking about anyways.
Right.
It's definitely, you know, it was interesting, I guess, to kind of go through the tweets last night and see all this information that was coming in. And again, this is our president-elect.
Right,
and whether you like him or dislike him, whether you agree with his policies or not, it just seems that there are a lot of people out on the internet that are, you know, deriving pleasure in reading this report.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
Right.
And in much the same way, we saw the other side react with glee when President Obama would have his problems.
Right.
And that's the thing, you know, we're very partisan. And I thought it was interesting. I was reading something yesterday about President Obama's farewell address. And they're talking about how the farewell address actually started with George Washington, right? So when he was leaving office after his second term. And one of the big things he had in his farewell address, he was warning the American people about being too politically partisan. I mean, so this is back in the 1700s.
Right.
Okay? And he's saying,
This
hey,
is
look,
the founders of this country.
yeah, don't be so partisan. Don't go
Right.
after each other. And, you know, maybe it's just the way that our political system is set up. So they were dealing with it back then.
Right.
We're dealing with it now.
I
There
feel
are
like
gonna
it's
be-
worse now. And again, I just blame the internet. I blame things like Twitter and Facebook because now it seems like everyone has a voice on the internet and everyone can
Right.
state their claims, and it gets really testy and people can team up and take sides. And I don't know, I feel like things were a bit more chill in like late 1999.
Well, we talked about, and it was Richard Nixon who talked about the silent majority, right? And now the majority's not silent anymore. Everybody's got a loudspeaker.
Right.
And we're not, and it's right here in your hands. And it's not standing up in a town hall meeting and saying, you know what, I disagree with you, Mr. Democrat, or I
Right.
disagree with you, Mr. Republican. It's this. So it's really
and you
easy
can hide
to fire
behind
up.
a username
You
too.
bet.
So it doesn't
Anonymous.
even matter.
Yeah. Which is good and bad. You know, the thing is, I see both sides of it. I think it's very good now that every man has a voice. And if you say the right thing and you touch the right nerve, all of a sudden every man becomes huge.
Right, or
overnight.
if you have access to certain information or you're witness to something, you can get it out there right away and you can see justice served in certain scenarios. You know, the right person at the right time can document something. For example, you know, in South Carolina, Walter Scott, you know, that shooting was documented because someone had a cell phone camera. And next thing you know, everyone knows about it. So there are scenarios where it's good that we're all sort of technologically connected in a way. But
no, I think overall it's it's a positive.
Right.
But there's a dark side to everything, you know.
Enrique Torres asking, what do you think about Donald Trump's profits going to the Department of Treasury?
About his profits going to the Treasury? Well, that'd be a weird precedent. I mean, if he wants to donate that much money, yeah, sure, cut a check at the end of the year. But designating his profits of his company to that, that's not really the American way. But I mean, if Donald Trump himself says, hey, you know what, for every year, whatever my company makes, I'm going to cut a check directly to the Treasury, I'd applaud that. I'd applaud anybody to do that.
Right.
Not
I
just the
mean,
president, sure.
I think it was a strategic way for his team to kind of quiet down the critics.
Right. So, yeah, we'll see if that works.
Right. There's so many people tuning in. We appreciate all of you guys tuning in. If you guys have any questions, you can write it in the chat room.
Right.
We'd like to answer some of your questions. We want to thank you guys for tuning in with us. I mean, we were carrying this press conference in full, and it was
And it was historic, let's be honest.
quite a sight to see.
It's, the other thing that I think is so interesting watching this president as opposed to others is his use of Twitter to directly communicate
Right.
to the people.
And speaking of which, let me just pull up his Twitter.
Okay.
Because he went on a tweet storm overnight.
The Russia stuff, yeah. And it's also amazing how little he apparently sleeps. And everybody comments on that,
When does Trump sleep?
Yeah, because I do the morning show. I get up early here, and
he already has.
Oh, he's firing things off. And
Right.
granted, we're a little bit later than they are or earlier than they are on the East Coast. But man, he's shooting stuff out. But the fact that he's been able to take Twitter and use it to directly communicate without any filter whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the past, the only way you could do that was to call a news conference, or
Right.
either a news conference or to have like a briefing from the Oval Office,
Right.
where everybody would let you just kind of talk.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't do that every day.
Right.
So several times a day, you've got the president-elect tweeting what he thinks, and I think that's powerful as well. I think that's empowering him.
So here is the Trump tweets from this morning. Russia just said the unverified report paid for by political opponents is a complete and total fabrication, utter nonsense, very unfair. This morning, the thing trending was utter nonsense. This phrase, utter nonsense, was trending nationwide.
But he did take some heat for this, and this is, when you are, and I guess they're the people who are attributed with doing this, but when you're saying, hey, look, Russia said this, so, hey, so I'm telling you, let's use them as credible. A lot of people would say, well, how credible is Russia? How credible is Vladimir Putin?
How could you trust them?
Right. It's the same thing with the WikiLeaks guy.
Right.
That he was talking about, saying, oh, yeah, well, he said this.
Right, and so there is something interesting. I noticed a lot of people on Twitter talking about how, the right wanted to believe all these unsubstantiated claims when it came to Hillary Clinton and her team, but now that the tables have turned, everyone's like,
Right.
whoa, this isn't verified. Why are we talking about it?
I like, just to change the subject quickly, I like at the very beginning when he was talking about the DNC hacking, where he basically said, hey, why didn't they protect themselves from hackers at DNC? We did, And the thing is, if it wasn't Russia hacking them, I mean, that's what Watergate was. Remember Watergate? Watergate was basically old school hacking. So they didn't have computers and stuff back then. They had a bunch of the plumbers go in and go through files,
Right.
cabinets. They were looking for dirt. That stuff's been going on forever. So if it's not Russia, I guess maybe it's more troubling because it's an outside force. But I mean, if the DNC could have hacked into the RNC, something tells me somewhere in that organization that may have happened. But who knows? Or vice versa. Because they're always doing, Oppo on the other side. It's been going on forever.
Right, this is just the modern day version of it.
So, get your spy software, anti-spy software ready and up to date.
Wow. So let's go back to those tweets again, just to go through the rest of Trump's tweets. Russia had never tried to use leverage over me. I have nothing to do with Russia. No deals, no loans, no nothing. I win an election easily. A great movement is verified, and crooked opponents try to belittle our victory with fake news. A sorry slate. Intelligence agencies should have never allowed this fake news to leak into the public. One last shot at me. Are we living in Nazi Germany?
Well, you know what it reminds me of? And again, I keep pointing to history, but if you look back in the days of Hoover with the FBI, they would pull up these long dossiers on people, and the FBI, of course, part of the intelligence, gathering apparatus of the United States. And, sometimes now you look at it, and some of the things that they were talking about in these old dossiers, like Marilyn Monroe and Frank Sinatra and all that stuff, I mean, they had these long, big reports. Now, you look at it now with like a critical eye and say, did they really see that? I mean, where's the verification for this? And so he's basically saying that, look, I mean, just because it came out here doesn't mean it's true. And then the other thing I think is interesting, if you go back down one or two more, when he talks about Russia, now he is on the record with saying, I have nothing to do with Russia, no deals, no loans, nothing. So that's him on the record. That's pretty categoric, if you ask me, him saying, I got nothing going on with Russia. So now if it comes out that he does, that's bad.
Right.
But I think until it's proven that he does, you might have to take him at his word.
Right. Now, Trump also suggested that his relationship with Putin, or not really relationship, but the fact that Putin likes him, should be viewed as an asset and not a liability.
Absolutely agree. I absolutely agree with that. And again, I'm coming from a place right in the middle. I'm not pro-Trump. I'm not against Trump or the other side. It's just, as an American, I think it is good that we have good relationships with other powerful nations.
Right.
I mean, Russia has, she's not what she used to be when the Soviet Union was there and we were so worried about them, but still a very powerful country that has the ability to give us some serious problems if they want to, and to destabilize the Middle East and a whole bunch of different things. So if we can be close to that government and try to work out some things with them, it sounds like Donald Trump's going to want to do it from a position of strength, not be like, oh, let's figure something out. I think it's good for all of us. I do. As long as Russia behaves itself, as long as Putin's not trying to do anything illegal or to, I mean, if it does come out that Russia, I mean, if we see some more information down the line, that they actively participated in trying to win the election or hurt the other side one way or the other, I do think something needs to be done about it.
Well, that's the thing. There are Senate hearings underway where different intelligence officials are testifying. You have James Comey testifying, a number of people testifying on the issue of foreign interference with regards to the 2016 election. I know Senator McCain making this issue one of his priorities early this year.
He was calling it an act of war.
Yeah.
And that's, I always wonder sometimes while Senator McCain is, that guy's always ready to fight. For a guy who spent a long time in a prison camp, But anyway, he's saying it's an act of war. I think it definitely needs to be punished.
Right.
If we know for sure they did it.
Well, we have Mike Vember saying in our chat room, it's been proven, even Trump admitted it. A lot of people pretty much saying, yes, the Russians did this, at least according to President Obama.
Well, then there we go. And President Obama has gone forward and he's expelled some diplomats and he's done some different things that he thinks is appropriate.
And at this point, though, nothing's going to change.
Oh, no. Oh, you know what? And I left out a big point. I've said this before. Is it an act of war to do what they did? And I will say no, because it's not anything different than our political parties basically have been doing to each other for years. And I bring up the Watergate example when President Nixon's team, the committee to re-elect the president, had somebody go in and try to go through somebody's files. I think if they would have gotten in somehow to our vote counting machines, if they have gotten in and really messed with that, to me, that comes much closer to an act of war than hacking, embarrassing emails.
Influencing the public.
Right. And spreading false stories. I mean, remember the rumor that went around when John McCain was running for president, and the night before South Carolina, apparently it was a robocall saying that he'd fathered an illegitimate black child.
Right.
And he does have a black child. It's a young woman who they adopted.
And she's not black. She's Bangladeshi.
Yes.
And that's the thing. That was Republican on Republican. That was something done by the Bush campaign.
Right. So that's fake news, and it really hurt him in South Carolina.
Right.
Most people
think.
This
is back in the 2000 election, guys.
So it's been happening for a long time.
Right.
And so, again, what I'll say is, if Russia did that, bad. If Russia got in and changed vote totals and really messed with stuff, that's coming closer to an act of war.
Right.
Senator McCain, with all due respect.
Let me. It looks like we got a question.
We did?
Yeah.
What people are
it's
flying.
It's just going by so fast. The
Good.
chat.
Thank you, everybody. We're glad you're watching.
Right here, Enrique Torres. What do you guys think about his continuous mention of businesses like Fiat and Ford? Good for business for the people or not? Do more businesses now see this as an opportunity?
I definitely do. It's funny because Apple just announced they had a big warehouse here in the Phoenix area. Actually, is it Gilbert or Mesa? I'm trying to think. Somewhere in the East Valley. And it was a big warehouse that they had bought or leased. They were going to make glass for iPhones out there back in the day, and they decided to shuttle those plans. Well, now all of a sudden, they just announced, I believe it was yesterday, that they're going to bring in a bunch of server personnel or something, part of the cloud is going to live out here.
Oh, wow.
And it was a place that was destined to go overseas. I think a lot of businesses have been put on notice that this president may back up what he's saying. And to me, I think it's one of his strongest attributes is his knowledge of business and knowing how to get to the people who are running things to say, hey, look, I understand it may be cheaper for you right now to send your manufacturing overseas or do whatever, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make it not cheaper. If you go over there and you do that, I'm going to stick a tax on there.
Well,
It's going to cost us the same.
And tax aside, he's probably going to call you out. You're probably going to end up getting some bad press and some public backlash because Trump is not going to let it go. I think if there's an opportunity to call a company out, he's going to call them out.
Right. And I think you may see that he has some, not cabinet level, but somebody at a high staff level who will probably be in charge of just watching for this kind of stuff. And when they see somebody getting ready to send 1,000 jobs somewhere, that's going to all of a sudden be on the Trump team's radar. Maybe not the president himself, but on the radar and say, hey, by the way, and who knows, maybe it's a deputy chief of staff or something who calls up and says, hey, just read this article about you shutting down this plant here and taking it somewhere else. Just want to let you know that, the president's not happy about that. And, that probably might be enough. Or just to let you know, the next time you try to import one of your widgets from Widgets R Us, it's going to come with a 15% tariff. That's what we've decided. So make the decision. Hopefully, look, I'm an American, and I'm rooting for Donald Trump. And, I'm not saying whether or not I was for him before or after now or whatever. If Hillary Clinton would have won, I would have said, I'm an American, I'm rooting for Hillary Clinton.
Right, and
I'm rooting for our president.
That's one of the things President Obama emphasized. We want our president to do well because that means America does well.
Right.
Whether you voted for him or not, that doesn't matter. Just
the president's success is our success. A president's failure can oftentimes be our failure.
Right.
Remember what happened, again, I'll bring up Watergate. That was not good. I'll bring up the impeachment of Bill Clinton. Like it or not, it was embarrassing to have all those details come out of what happened in the Oval Office. That was not good. That was the failure of a president. It was all of our failure. So, yeah, we got to root for him. I think it's a patriotic thing to do. And that's where I sit.
All right. Well, thank you for hanging out with me.
Yeah,
Troy.
no, it was good. I'm going to head off to my morning meeting. And thanks, everybody, for watching.
All right, guys. I'm going to take you to the Rex Tillerson Senate confirmation hearing now.
And understanding what the impacts may be on the American people and American competitiveness.
Do you commit to ensure that no one... The U.S. should stop racing to topple foreign regimes that we know nothing about, that we shouldn't be involved with? This is kind of interrelated to the last question, but I think is also important in the sense that there are some within the foreign policy community who say, oh, we must go in and topple the regime in Iran. It'll be a cakewalk. It'll be, they'll welcome us with open arms. But one of the interesting things you find as you meet Iranian Americans, many of whom lost all of their land, all of their wealth, and you ask them about Iran and you say, would it be a good idea to militarily, invade Iran? And they say completely the opposite, that much of Iran is younger, much of Iran is pro-Western, and that with the first bomb that is dropped, you'll reverse, a lot of goodwill that is potentially there when Iran does finally change its regime on its own. But I think it's important because we do, and nobody wants Iran to have nuclear weapons. Nobody wants Iran to be an aggressor in the region. And at the same time, I think it is important that we look at the lessons of the Iraq War. The Iraq War actually emboldened Iran, made Iran stronger. And so the questions are, same thing with Libya. We toppled the regime in Libya. But I guess the question is with regard to Iran, those who are advocating, that it'll be a cakewalk, that we should have military regime change, what do you think of that advocacy, and what do you think of, I guess, the Donald Trump statements with regard to regime change?
Well, I think you've described it in many ways, and the same way I would see it is that what is in the best interest of our national security? And I think this is where these priorities sometimes come into conflict of our values and the projection of our American values and our desire and out of our compassion for the mistreatment of people, the violation of human rights, oppressive regimes. We want those people to have what we have, but balancing that against our national security interest. And what's most important is that we protect the American people first. And this is where sometimes I think our priorities, we have too many priorities, and therefore we lose sight of what is the most important. Any decision to affect a change of leadership in a country by force cannot be taken lightly. And I think the question that one has to answer is that I've posed a couple of times: what comes next? And in the case of Libya, I think that was the failing in the decision to change the regime there. As no one had a clear plan or view of what would come next. That's what we're experiencing and have experienced somewhat in Iraq. And it is the question in Syria when people talk about changing the leadership there. What comes next? Certainly, making a decision to use force is a serious, serious decision, because we know it will come at a cost of precious American lives. So I think that is important, and if confirmed.
All right, guys, we have Rex Tillerson playing on another YouTube feed. So what we're going to do right now, for those of you who wanted to watch the Donald Trump press conference, we're going to do a replay for you. Donald Trump's press conference just wrapped up. We're going to do a replay for you now. Stand by.
It's a serious, serious decision, because we know it will come.
Territory news conferences, because we used to give them on a almost daily basis. I think we probably maybe won the nomination because of news conferences, and it's good to be with you. We stopped giving them because we were getting quite a bit of inaccurate news, but I do have to say that, and I must say that I want to thank a lot of the news organizations here today, because they looked at that nonsense that was released by maybe the intelligence agencies. Who knows? But maybe the intelligence, a lot of things, which would be a tremendous blot on their record if they in fact did that. A tremendous blot. Because a thing like that should have never been written, it should never have been had, and it should certainly never have been released. But I want to thank a lot of the news organizations, for some of whom have not treated me very well over the years. A couple in particular, and they came out so strongly against that fake news and the fact that it was written about by primarily one group and one television station. So I just want to compliment many of the people in the room. I have great respect for the news and great respect for freedom of the press and all of that, but I will tell you there were some news organizations, with all that was just said, that were so professional, so incredibly professional, that I've just gone up a notch as a landing. Okay? All right. We've had some great news over the last couple of weeks. I've been quite active, I guess you could say, in an economic way for the country. A lot of car companies are going to be moving in. We have other companies. Big news is going to be announced over the next couple of weeks about companies that are going to be building in the Midwest. You saw it yesterday, Fiat, Chrysler. Big, big factory going to be built in this country as opposed to another country. Ford just announced that they stopped plans for a $1 billion plant in Mexico, and they're going to be moving into Michigan and expanding very substantially an existing plant. I appreciate that from Ford. I appreciate it very much from Fiat Chrysler. I hope that General Motors will be following, and I think they will be. I think a lot of people will be following. I think a lot of industries are going to be coming back. We have to get our drug industry coming back. Our drug industry has been disastrous. They're leaving left and right. They supply our drugs, but they don't make them here to a large extent. And the other thing we have to do is create new bidding procedures for the drug industry, because they're getting away with murder. Pharma has a lot of lobbies, a lot of lobbyists, and a lot of power. And there's very little bidding on drugs. We're the largest buyer of drugs in the world, and yet we don't bid properly, and we're going to start bidding, and we're going to save billions of dollars over a period of time. And we're going to do that with a lot of other industries. I'm very much involved with the generals and admirals on the airplane, the F-35. You've been reading about it. And it's way, way behind schedule and many, many billions of dollars over budget. I don't like that. And the admirals have been fantastic. The generals have been fantastic. I've really gotten to know them well. And we're going to do some big things on the F-35 program and perhaps the F-18 program. And we're going to get those costs way down, and we're going to get the plane to be even better, and we're going to have some competition, and it's going to be a beautiful thing. So we've been very, very much involved, and other things. We had Jack Ma, we had so many incredible people coming here. Mr. Arnaud, they're going to do tremendous things in this country. And they're very excited. And I will say, if the election didn't turn out the way it turned out, they would not be here, they would not be in my office, they would not be in anybody else's office. They'd be building and doing things in other countries. So there's a great spirit going on right now, a spirit that many people have told me they've never seen before, ever. We're going to create jobs. I said that I will be the greatest jobs producer that God ever created, and I mean that. I'm going to work very hard on that. We need certain amounts of other things, including a little bit of luck, but I think we're going to do a real job, and I'm very proud of what we've done, and we haven't even gotten there yet. I look very much forward to the inauguration. It's going to be a beautiful event. We have great talent, tremendous talent, and we have all of the bands, or most of the bands, from the different segments of the military. And I've heard some of these bands over the years. They're incredible. We're going to have a very, very elegant day. The 20th is going to be something that will be very, very special, very beautiful. And I think we're going to have massive crowds because we have a movement. It's a movement like the world has never seen before. It's a movement that a lot of people didn't expect. And even the polls, although some of them did get it right, but many of them didn't. And that was a beautiful scene on November 8th as those states started to pour in. And we focused very hard on those states, and they really reciprocated. And those states are going to have a lot of jobs, and they're going to have a lot of security. They're going to have a lot of good news for their veterans. And by the way, speaking of veterans, I appointed today the head secretary of the Veterans Administration, David Shulkin, and we'll do a news release in a little while. I'll tell you about David. He's fantastic. He's fantastic. He will do a truly great job. One of the commitments I've made is that we're going to straighten out the whole situation for our veterans. Our veterans have been treated horribly. They're waiting in line for 15, 16, 17 days. Cases where they go in and they have a minor, early stage form of cancer and they can't see a doctor. By the time they get to the doctor, they're terminal. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So David is going to do a fantastic job. We're going to be talking to a few people also to help David. And we have some of the great hospitals of the world going to align themselves with us on the Veterans Administration, like the Cleveland Clinic, like the Mayo Clinic, a few more that we have. And we're going to set up a group. These are hospitals that have been the top of the line, the absolute top of the line. And they're going to get together with their great doctors. Dr. Toby Cosgrove, as you know, from the Cleveland Clinic, has been very involved. Ike Perlmutter has been very, very involved, one of the great men of business. And we're going to straighten out the VA for our veterans. I've been promising that for a long time. And something I feel very, very strongly. So you'll get the information on David, and I think you'll be very impressed with the job he does. We looked long and hard. We interviewed at least 100 people. Some good, some not so good, but we had a lot of talent. And we think this election will be something that will, with time, straighten it out, and straighten it out for good, because our veterans have been treated very unfairly. Okay. Questions? Yes.
Mr. President-elect, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. A couple of aspects of the intelligence briefing that you received on Friday that we're looking for further clarification on.
Sure.
First of all, did the heads of the intelligence agencies provide you with a two-page summary of these unsubstantiated allegations? And secondly to that, on the broader picture, do you accept their opinion that Vladimir Putin ordered the hack of the DNC and the attempted hack of the RNC? And if you do, how will that color your attempts to build a relationship with a leader who has been accused of committing an act of espionage against the United States?
These meetings, as you know, are confidential, classified, so I'm not allowed to talk about what went on in the meeting. But we had many witnesses in that meeting, many of them with us. And I will say again, I think it's a disgrace that information would be let out. I saw the information, I read the information outside of that meeting. It's all fake news, it's phony stuff. It didn't happen. And it was gotten by opponents of ours, as you know, because you reported it and so did many of the other people. It was a group of opponents that got together, sick people, and they put that crap together. So I will tell you that not within the meeting, but outside of the meeting, somebody released it. It should never have been, number one, shouldn't have even entered paper, but it should never have been released. But I read what was released, and I think it's a disgrace. I think it's an absolute disgrace. As far as hacking, I think it was Russian, but I think we also get hacked by other countries and other people. And I can say that, you know, when we lost 22 million names and everything else that was hacked recently, they didn't make a big deal out of that. That was something that was extraordinary. That was probably China. We have much hacking going on. One of the things we're going to do, we have some of the greatest computer minds anywhere in the world that we've assembled. You saw just a sample of it 2 weeks ago up here where we had the 6 top people in the world that would never in the same room together as a group. And we're going to put those minds together and we're going to form a defense. And I have to say this also. The Democratic National Committee was totally open to be hacked. They did a very poor job. They could have had hacking defense, which we had. And I will give Reince Priebus credit, because when Reince saw what was happening in the world and with this country.
All right, everyone, Samia here. I am wrapping up my morning show coverage here on News Now. I know many of you guys were interested in watching that Trump replay, that press conference replay. So for those of you who are interested, all you need to do is go to facebook.com/Fox10Phoenix. We have the video link there of our original stream, so you can watch it there in full. And if you guys want to watch live news happening right now, we're actually watching the Senate confirmation hearing of Rex Tillerson, Donald Trump's pick for Secretary of State. That's on our other feed. For those of you regular viewers, you can find that feed on fox10phoenix.com/news-now. You can also find it on our YouTube page. So we're going to take you guys there. We appreciate everyone tuning in to our special Donald Trump-themed press conference stream, and we'll see you guys later.